You need to monitor your honeybee winter cluster size. If you don't monitor that, you're going to have more losses than you really need to have. And what I do is I take this LED flashlight and I look inside here, and I look for the cluster. Right there's the cluster. See the cluster right there? Okay, I know that colony's fine. Any colony that I find that I can't see the top of the cluster or the cluster, I'll take the cover off, and I've already done this one. That's why they're still large enough that they're walking around in there. But what I do is I take the outer cover off, I take the inner cover off, and again I take my LED flashlight, and any gaps in between the frames, I look down and I can see the size of the cluster. If the cluster is really small, I really want to know how thick is that cluster from top to bottom. So then what I do next is I take my hive tool and I put it in here and I pry it open and I take a peek down in between and see if I can see the cluster. This colony right here, the cluster is, you can see the top of the cluster here. It's from here to here. When I pried this open, I didn't see any bees down here. So this cluster is too small for northern winter. And I'm always keeping notes. Like I wrote down every colony where they weren't clustered. They weren't clustered in this, above this area here. They were clustered below. I wrote down every one of them, and this was the only one. 25 is the only one that I found that needs to be brought in. So what I'm gonna do is I got my strap right here. I'm gonna remove this insulation. I've already plugged the holes. I got my tractor warmed up, ready to go. I'm gonna take that hive, after I get it on the bucket of the tractor, I'm gonna take it, I'm gonna move it over here to the deck. I'm gonna hand truck it inside, and before they get a chance to warm up and break down the cluster, I'm gonna take it, I'm gonna remove that bottom deep and get it to a single deep and a medium. Okay, so I'm gonna pause this camera. Okay, I got it loaded, and I always put a rubber strap around it so it doesn't vibrate. Whoops, bounce off. Tripped on my fence. I got the fence here for keep the chickens from eating insulation board. So let me bring this around to the deck. Yeah, I forgot to mention I put one of these screens on there because this is going to be on there when I'm done. So I'm going to I got to quickly do this before they warm up. And then I left the cover off while I moved them because I want them to get a little cold before I bring them in. And it's not totally warm in here. It's about 50 in here. It's not really all that warm. So let me take that strap off and remove that bottom deep, okay? Yeah, they're not as small as I thought they were, but they are too small to make it through winter outside. So I still have the bottom deep on. Let me get that removed. This is what I'm talking about, see? They're not even in that bottom deep, which means they're too small. I knew that when I pried those two deeps apart and I looked in there. So let me get that bottom deep off. There aren't a lot of dead bees in the bottom. So they are doing a good job removing the dead bees. So I'm just gonna get what remains there off. And see, there's the residue from the acetic acid. And I can take an LED magnifying glass and I could look, see if there's any varroa mites. And I'll probably do that right now. See, I've got my magnifying light and I'm looking, and I'm not seeing a huge amount of varroa mites. Basically, I really haven't seen any at all. So these bees aren't really dying because of the virosis from varroa mites. It could be other reasons. It could be just the excessive amount of chemicals in our environment. So It's hard to keep honeybees alive. This doesn't necessarily mean I'm a bad beekeeper, but well, let me put this back together. Okay, sorry for the rush, but I'm doing this, but you want to be as quick as possible, and I didn't get a whole lot of bees out, and I didn't really want to inspect the colony right now because I just moved them, so they may be riled up from that move. So let them calm down in a couple days or so. I can check this colony for a queen. And if they don't have a queen, I'll just combine these bees with some of my smallest colonies. So that's basically what I do all winter long. And this one here had a gap between the deep and the shim, so I folded up some paper. There's 2 sheets of paper here, and I can slide it back and forth, and that fills the gap to make sure they don't get out. Okay, thank you.